Of all the great powers of the Alpha and Beta Quadrants, few were as feared as the Romulan Star Empire. One of the oldest and most powerful empires in the region, the Romulan Empire was secretive, vicious, and cunning, feared by its allies and enemies alike. The Romulans were known for many things, but perhaps their most infamous calling cards were their warships, the hulls of which were painted with raptors in flight. Arguably the most iconic of these vessels was the Bird-of-Prey, a compact but deadly class of starship that served as the mainstay of the Romulan fleet. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the Tillis-class Bird-of-Prey, the main Romulan Bird-of-Prey class during the 23rd and 24th centuries, examining its specifications and history. Welcome to Trek Central, I'm your host, Captain Jack. If you want to keep up to date on the latest Star Trek news, lore and more, then make sure to hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from the team here at Trek Central. We're enjoying making these Star Trek videos, and we hope you are too. If you want to support their development, check out our Patreon via the link below. Any support is greatly appreciated. As always, please do let us know your thoughts in the comments section below, because if you're talking about Star Trek, then we want to hear about it. Okay, engage. For centuries, birds of prey were the most common class of Romulan warship, acting as the heralds of the Romulan Empire as it expanded across known space. But after their defeat in the Earth-Romulan War, the Romulans entered a period of isolation, during which they spent a century stewing in their bitterness on the far side of the neutral zone. But by the mid-23rd century, the Romulans were beginning to get aggressive again, and in preparation for what might have been a new age of Romulan expansionism, they designed a new class of bird of prey. In canon, this ship has been identified as the Tillis-class light bird of prey, but many expanded media sources identify it as the Vasthafen class instead. It was brought into service in the 2260s, and in 2266, one of the first ships of the class was sent across the neutral zone to probe the Federation's defences. It was defeated in the end, but it fared well enough that birds of prey of the same class would become a mainstay of the Romulan fleet. This incident would be the end of the Romulans' prolonged isolation, and in the years that followed, this new Romulan bird of prey would make frequent appearances along the neutral zone and in Romulan fleets. The Tillis-class light bird of prey was on the small side for a Romulan warship, measuring 192 meters long, 180 meters wide, and 51 meters tall, according to an official production fact sheet. It had a fairly simple design, consisting of an elongated main hull and two outboard nacelles, which were connected by short wings. The main hull was rounded at the forward end and narrowed towards the aft, and it supported a long stabilizer fin along the dorsal spine. The wings were thick and slanted upwards, raising the ship's nacelles above the main hull. These nacelles were cylindrical and resembled contemporary Starfleet warp nacelles, down to the dome-like buzzard collectors on the front. The ventral hull of the Romulan bird of prey was painted with a massive hawk-like bird in flight, the classic Romulan symbol that gave the bird of prey its name. All told, the Tillis bore a striking resemblance to many 23rd century Starfleet vessels, and it's possible that this just wasn't coincidental. In the original script of Balance of Terror, the original series episode in which the ship first appeared, Commander Hansen speculated that the ship was based on stolen Starfleet blueprints, and while this line was cut from the final episode, it's still an interesting possibility. The Tillis-class bird of prey was capable of both warp and impulse speeds, although it couldn't go to warp while its most powerful tactical systems were active, without overloading its power core. At impulse, the bird of prey was speedy and maneuverable, propelled by a bank of impulse engines that lined the aft end of a primary hull. According to expanded media sources, the bird of prey's warp drive was capable of propelling the ship at a maximum speed of warp 8, making it about as fast as top speed of a contemporary Constitution-class starship. The bird of prey's warp cores were housed within the ship's outboard nacelles. According to some expanded media sources, the Tillis-class bird of prey could land on planetary surfaces atop a set of 3 retractable landing legs, which are built into the ventral hull. In canon, it is at least capable of atmospheric flight, as seen in Star Trek Strange New Worlds, something made easier by its aerodynamic design and dorsal stabilizer fin. The interior of the Tillis-class bird of prey was cramped and Spartan, similar to Klingon birds of prey. The ship appears to have come in a number of interior configurations, with at least 3 different bridge variants showing up between the original series, Lower Decks, and Strange New Worlds. Some had a dim interior with a faint green lighting and dark colour scheme, while others were more brightly lit and interior colour schemes dominated by mauve and purple. Regardless of interior style, all Tillis-class birds of prey were unfurnished, cramped, and unwelcoming on the inside, in a stark contrast to the spacious interiors of Starfleet vessels. Most Romulan birds of prey had particularly cramped bridges. One version of a bridge contained just 4 standing stations for the crew, clustered around a central console and a view screen at one end, with no seats for any of the bridge personnel. Another version of a bridge contained just 3 standing stations, 1 for the captain and 2 for other members of the crew. These were located along the walls of the room. Neither of these bridge variants contained any seating. A newer bird of prey seen in the 24th century had a much larger bridge, similarly based on that of a D-Deredex class warbird. This bridge contained a central captain's chair, at least 2 seated crew stations, and a few more standing stations along the walls. The Talisk class bird of prey was crewed by a total of 170 Romulan military personnel, who were given a few amenities or creature comforts aboard these cramped vessels. The ship was likely not equipped with escape pods, as Romulan military doctrine dictated that ships should self-destruct if crippled. The Talisk class bird of prey featured an arsenal of onboard old-style nuclear warheads for that exact purpose, which was sufficient to completely destroy the ship if the captain ordered it. According to the expanded media, the Romulan Bird of Prey carried 2 Romulan shuttles as well as auxiliary craft. These were deployed via a pair of hatches on the aft end of the ship, one to either side of the stabilizer fin. The Talisk class featured standard deflector shields, but for defense, it primarily relied upon its built-in cloaking device. Cloaking devices had long been a staple of Romulan warships, and Romulan cloaks tend to be more sophisticated and harder to penetrate than the Klingon ones. The Romulan cloaking device used on a Talisk class bird of prey was no exception, rendering the starship completely invisible and all but undetectable. It wasn't completely perfect, however. Certain Starfleet tracking sensors could still detect cloaked birds of prey as of 2266, and the Romulan bird of prey was incapable of firing its weapons or engaging its warp drives while cloaked, due to how much power the cloaking device required. In spite of these vulnerabilities, the Talisk class's cloaking device was one of the most important tactical systems. It allowed the starship to get the drop on the enemy, strike quickly, and then vanish again before the enemy could retaliate, a tactic that ships of this class use frequently. The fearsome strategic potential of a Romulan cloaking device was only matched by the arsenal weapons that the bird of prey carried. The Talisk class bird of prey was armed with 2 disruptor arrays, which were mounted towards the front of a primary hull. While its self-destruct nuclear warheads didn't come with delivery systems, they could be fitted with proximity fuses and converted into mines, which the bird of prey could deploy against unsuspecting enemies. But the ship's most fearsome weapon was a single, forward-mounted torpedo launcher, which was capable of firing extraordinarily powerful plasma torpedoes. These incredibly powerful weapons could easily obliterate a standard asteroid base, and they were even more effective in ship-to-ship combat. In 2266, one of the first Talisk class birds of prey was dispatched on a mission across the neutral zone, tasked with destroying the Federation border outpost and testing its resolve. This ship destroyed 4 outposts with impunity before encountering the USS Enterprise, which engaged in a 10-hour-long game of cat and mouse with the bird of prey. The Romulans fought well, but in the end, the Enterprise's superior firepower and Captain James T. Kirk's tactics meant that in the end, the bird of prey was crippled. The captain ordered the ship to self-destruct, and the Romulan incursion into Federation space came to an end. The defeat of this particular bird of prey ended up averting a full-scale war between the Romulan Star Empire and the United Federation of Planets. But had the outcome of the battle been different, the Romulans would have deemed the Federation weak enough to conquer and launch a full-scale invasion. Fortunately, the Enterprise's performance in the battle convinced the Romulans that the Federation was still too strong to engage directly. However, the Romulans still ended their long isolationism following the battle, and over the course of the next 50 years, they forged alliances and fought wars with a number of neighbouring civilizations, most notably the Klingon Empire. Throughout this period, the Talisk class bird of prey would be one of the Romulans' most commonly used starships, despite its earlier failure in the neutral zone incursion. During the latter half of the 23rd century, Romulan birds of prey patrolled the edges of the neutral zone in large squadrons, which, if provoked, would work together to bring down much larger targets. When the Enterprise briefly ventured into the neutral zone in 2267, for instance, it was ambushed by a squadron of 10 birds of prey, and it only narrowly escaped. In battle, Romulan birds of prey tended to use their cloaking devices to get the drop on an enemy, before suddenly decloaking, crippling their target with their disruptors or plasma torpedo, and then quickly recloaking before the target could retaliate. In other words, they practiced a spaceborne version of submarine warfare. Thanks to the use of these tactics, the capabilities of a Romulan cloaking device, and the power of his weapons, a single Talisk class bird of prey could easily bring down a much larger starship, and Bird-of-Prey squadrons were formidable challenges for all but the toughest of fleets. After many decades in service, the Talisk-class Bird-of-Prey was largely phased out of the Romulan fleet in the early 24th century, possibly around the time of the 2311 Tomid incident, which was the start of another 50 years of Romulan isolationism. Some ships of the class survived in various museums, while a few even remained in service as antiques. Following the collapse of the Romulan Star Empire in the late 24th century, some antique birds of prey saw use in the Romulan Republic's fleet, while the warlord Karkantan also operated an antique Talisk class as his flagship. The original Romulan Bird-of-Prey was both designed and made into a studio model by artist, designer, and prop maker Huaming Shang. Very little is known about the design process, except that Chang built the studio model over the course of 2 weeks, completing everything except the paint job himself. The studio model was internally lit and nearly a meter wide, and also went missing either during or after the original series run. It's never been confirmed where exactly the model ended up. Some theories claim that it was sold to a private collector, or that it was accidentally destroyed. It's also been claimed that because Huaming Shang was not supposed to be making props for the original series, per the terms of the studio's contract with the prop makers union, the model was returned to Chang at the start of the second season. Chang himself supposedly destroyed the model shortly thereafter. In 1999, a CGI model of a Romulan Bird-of-Prey was created by Foundation Imaging's Rob Bonshun for use in promotional material. But when the original series received a remaster in 2006, the VFX team working on the remaster made use of a completely different CGI model for the Bird-of-Prey. This was made by a fan, Petri Blomqvist. The model was purchased by CBS for use in the remaster, and it showed up in the remastered versions of the 2 original series episodes in which the Bird-of-Prey originally appeared, Balance of Terror and The Deadly Years. It was also added into a shot from the episode The Enterprise Incident, replacing one of the 3 Klingon cruisers of Romulans in the original episodes used. A new CGI model for the Bird-of-Prey has since been used in Star Trek Picard and Strange New Worlds, including one episode of the latter series that revisited the events of the ship's original appearance in Balance of Terror. This new model made minor tweaks to the colour of the ship and the design of themselves, but it largely follows the design from Star Trek the original series. So that's our look at the Talisk-class Romulan Bird-of-Prey. If you want to keep up to date on all the latest Star Trek news, lore and more, then make sure to hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from the team here at Trek Central. You can also follow us on social media or join our community Discord server. We're enjoying making these Star Trek videos, and we hope you're enjoying watching them. If you want to support their development, check out our Patreon via the link below. Any support is greatly appreciated. For now, I've been Captain Jack, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Live long and prosper, my friends. Goodbye.